welcome to Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro's 2024 Annual General Meeting. I'm going to pass it over now to our MC for today, Michael McCarthy, who's a real-time energy marketer with Hydro's Energy Marketing Division, and he has agreed to be our MC for today and tell us a little bit about energy marketing, which has just celebrated its 10-year anniversary. So I'll pass it over to Michael.
Good morning and welcome to Hydro's annual general meeting. My name is Michael McCarthy, a real-time energy marketer with Hydro's energy marketing team. Before I begin, I would like to respectfully acknowledge that Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro operates on traditional lands of Indigenous peoples throughout this province. We strive for meaningful reconciliation now and into the future. This past March, the Energy Marketing Department celebrated its 10th anniversary, and I'm so proud to represent them all here today to reflect on the evolution, achievements, and significant contributions our team has made to the organization. The department originated from Hydro's decision to retain the rights to all recapture energy from the 1969 power contract between Churchill Falls and Hydro-Quebec, and was originally incorporated on March 24th, 2014. This was also around the time I started my career at Hydro as one of the first real-time energy marketers. Over the last 10 years, the team has grown from a modest group of 4 employees into a department of 22 people responsible for the sale of surplus energy, managing transmission rights, scheduling energy transfers, the sale of renewable energy credits, energy imports and deliveries, and much more. So you may be wondering, why are we selling energy after recently announcing that as a province, we need more energy and capacity? In Newfoundland and Labrador, our clean, renewable energy comes mainly from our abundant source of water. At times when the demand for electricity is low here at home, our system has the capacity to produce more energy than our customers need. During those times, we have an opportunity to sell to other provinces and states for their use. At other times, we may need to purchase electricity for ourselves. To make all of this happen, the energy marketing team is active 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, monitoring our system supply, local electricity use, and demand for electricity in other markets. It is a complex and delicate balance to ensure our customers have the energy they need or are benefiting from the sale of energy we don't need here in Newfoundland and Labrador. As a veteran real-time energy marketer, I've seen so much growth within the team and evolution in the market. But my passion for real-time energy trading remains as steadfast today as it was 10 years ago. I'm proud of our contributions to the work of Hydro and to the people of the province. The department has truly become a vital part of Newfoundland and Labrador's energy future. Now let's have a look at the rest of the morning. I'll start by mentioning that Hydro's business and financial report for 2023 has been released and can be found on our website. For those of you in the room today, you will see some QR-coded posters around that will also take you to the report. For today's session, we are combining our 2023 update with our 2024 Q1 financial update and providing information on business highlights for the year to date. Today, I'm joined by Jennifer Williams, President and CEO, Lisa Hutchins, Vice President, Chief Financial Officer, and John Green, Acting Chair, Board of Directors, as well as members of Hydro's Board of Directors and other members of our executive leadership team. In a moment, you will hear from John Green, Acting Chair, Board of Directors. Jennifer will then provide an overview of Hydro's progress in 2023 towards meeting our goals set out in our strategic plan, including a few highlights from our very own energy marketing team. Lisa will follow with a report on Hydro's financial results for 2023 and an update on Q1 2024. Jennifer will then return to provide an outlook for the future of electricity in our province. Following the presentations, we will move into the question and answer portion of our meeting. This webcast will be recorded and made available on Hydro's website in the coming days. For a copy of our annual report, please visit our website, nlhydro.com. We will now hear from John Green, Acting Chair, Board of Directors. John is a long-serving member of the board and brings a wealth of knowledge and experience from his time at McInnes Cooper, representing provincial, national, and international clients in the oil and gas, electricity, mining, and forestry sectors. John, I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks very much, Michael. It's a pleasure to be here this morning representing your board of directors. And this is our annual meeting, and as such is a very important part of our disclosure and reporting to the public. I'm pleased to be here to bring greetings from the board, and that I do now. While the focus of today is to highlight Hydro's 23 business and financial accomplishments, at the outset, I'd first like to say and acknowledge the impact of and response to the recent wildfires near the community of Churchill Falls. On June 19th, Churchill Falls employees and their families had to evacuate their homes and their city, not knowing what the days ahead would bring. For the next 2 weeks, community groups and organizations opened their doors and their hearts to the people of Churchill Falls. In Happy Valley, Goose Bay, and Labrador City, volunteers offered beds, meals, homes for pets, clothing, and comfort. I don't know if there's a play coming on this one, but it was certainly as large an effort. As the wildfire spread, crews from across the country came to Labrador to help keep the community safe. With unwavering support from the province and the provincial forestry officials, water bombers, helicopters, and fire behavioral specialists were deployed to bucket water and track the fire's progress. Water bombers from other provinces were quick to answer the call for help, and ground crews were on call to begin working when it was safe for them to do so. Thanks to these efforts and a little bit of help from the upstairs, the evacuation order was lifted on July 5th. Churchill Falls residents could then go home, or at least start the process of doing that. I know the people of Churchill Falls and the entire Hydro organization will be forever grateful to everybody that stepped up and for the kindness shown to them. We simply could not let today go by without acknowledging this tremendous outpouring of support and what it meant to the employees and particularly the folks who live and work in Churchill Falls. In a few moments, Jennifer and Lisa will provide details about Hydro's 2023 business and financial accomplishments. And this past year, there are many accomplishments of which we can be proud. One of those was the implementation of Hydro's 23-25 strategic plan. Under the strategic plan, Hydro has a renewed vision and values, and 3 strategic themes under which we are focusing our efforts. These 3 strategic themes are, number 1, serving our province. In all our operations, regulated or non-regulated, field or office-based, we are a Crown utility owned by and operated for the people of this province. Secondly, enabling sustainable growth. We contribute to a sustainable, economically vibrant future for our province through the responsible management and development of provincial energy resources. Finally, and the key, working together. We are safe, inclusive, and collaborative. We are a unified team that uplifts and supports each other to proudly serve the people of this province. Our strategic plan was updated to not only reflect our evolving organization, but also to ensure that hydro, as a Crown utility, can play its part to support and enable our province's efforts towards decarbonisation, while enabling participation in opportunities that clean energy transmission provides. As we reflect on our strategic themes, I can think of no better example of serving our province than that of the energy marketing team, who, as Michael has just mentioned, recently celebrated their 10-year anniversary. Comprising three main areas of trading, analytics, and regulatory, energy marketing's structure reflects its multifaceted role. It ensures that hydro not only optimizes its assets and energy sales, but also retains specific market knowledge and expertise regarding energy trading and marketing activities within our region, in Canada, and actually along the whole eastern seaboard of the continent. Their role is essential to our organization, and our province as the global demand for clean energy grows, ensuring we can capitalize on future needs and regional partnerships. Contributing significantly to the province's economic and sustainable growth, energy marketing is an example of innovation, adaptability, and success within the energy sector. Before asking Jennifer to come and speak to you, I would like to take this opportunity to acknowledge the incredible people that we are fortunate and that you are fortunate enough to have working at Hydro. They work tirelessly in their commitment and work together to make a real difference in our communities each and every day. I speak for the entire board when I say it is an honor to witness Jennifer, her leadership team, and all of Hydro employees navigate the rapidly changing energy landscape and work to redefine the future of energy in this province. There are so many opportunities that are exciting on our horizon, and I am fortunate and delighted to have a front row seat. Didn't cost a cent. I wish to thank my fellow directors, many of whom are here today, for their continued commitment and diligence in guiding the province's energy company for the benefit of the people of this province. Jennifer, your turn.
Trip on the wire.
Thanks, Tom.
Hi, everyone. I love seeing this many people here. This is amazing. So thank you all for joining us today. These are your assets. And so it's really important to see the interest from the public. So I think I said it to Mr. Vardy a couple of years ago, bring a friend next time. It looks like he brought some friends, and I ask all of you to bring some friends again next year. We would love to see more and more people interested in what we have to say today. Thank you, John, and thank you, Michael. And before I share our highlights, I do want to reflect on a moment in 2023 that has had and continues to have a profound impact across our organization. Less than a year ago, a tragic workplace incident occurred at our Holyrood site. We lost a friend and colleague that day, Bill Walsh. We felt his loss that day and each day since. Bill's contributions will forever be remembered within our Hydro family. Bill's passing reminds us that our commitment to safety for our people and for the public must continue to be our main focus. Without the safety of our people, nothing else matters. You may recall, last year I shared with you, as John just referenced as well, our 3-year strategic plan, focusing on our 3 core priorities. 1 year into the plan, well, 1.5 years now, but this year's results is 1 year into the plan. We continue to anchor our actions to these priorities, serving our province, enabling sustainable growth, and working together. I typically will end the AGM with highlights under the working together priority. In fact, I ended the last AGM saying great things happen when you bring people together. And today that's where I'll start. Not to talk about 2023, but about the recent events, as John just mentioned, in 2024, when wildfires threatened the community of Churchill Falls. And echoing John's words of thanks, I am truly grateful for the people of this province, and Labrador in particular, who came together to support our employees, our families, and as John mentioned, even pets, which everybody in Churchill has pets, like lots of them. So it was quite the effort. And you supported our contractors as well. Our town, our people's homes and livelihoods were protected because of you. Thank you. As the Premier said to some of our employees in Churchill Falls, it's an important asset there, but nothing is more important than the health and safety of our people, and that's how we reacted. People do indeed come first. To those who were displaced, you never left our thoughts through that period, and we are so thankful that we were able to bring everyone home safely. I want you all to know that we are still here to support you. And now, of course, I do need to share with you a few accomplishments from 2023 made possible by the amazing team, as John has referenced, of which I am especially proud. It cannot be said enough. Our commitment to safety must continue to be our main focus. It's first in our list of company values for a very deliberate reason. Without the safety of our people, nothing else matters. In January of 2023, we launched our Pause Prevents Injury campaign, focused on our most common workplace injuries. Quite simply, the campaign reminded everyone that they should pause before taking on any task to ensure that they considered and mitigated the hazards that can cause injury. Then in September, we hosted a company-wide Safety Pause event, which saw all of our employees throughout the province gather to share any concerns as well as successes with regards to their areas of work and to reflect on our safety culture. Another core people first activity is employee engagement. Late in 2023, we launched an employee engagement survey. The feedback from that survey will allow us to celebrate, expand upon, and reinforce things that are going well. Also, to identify opportunities for improvement to make Hydro an even better employer. Putting people first goes beyond the walls of the switchyards at Hydro. It's also about giving back to the communities we serve. We hear that very clearly from our customers that we serve. And our employees have a proud history of philanthropy. Over this past year, we have continued to build on that legacy. And last year, we proudly supported 93 charities and community groups throughout the province. Something especially noteworthy was our third annual energy breakfast with Kids Eat Smart, Newfoundland and Labrador, an organization we have supported for more than 20 years. Through employee and corporate contributions, we donated more than $52,000 to support the school breakfast program, helping provide children with the energy they need to start the day right. Children simply do much better at school when they have breakfast, and we are honored to support this program. And while community giving is not about accolades, I am incredibly humbled by Hydro's recognition as the Corporate Philanthropist of the Year by the Association of Fundraising Professionals, Newfoundland and Labrador, following a nomination by Ronald McDonald House Charities, Newfoundland and Labrador. This is a testament to the generous hearts of the people that we employ. Hydro is inclusive and collaborative. We seek diversity and understand its value. Our employees' experiences, beliefs, and expectations are at the heart of who we are and why we're here. I take great pride in having surpassed Hydro's executive and leadership gender equity targets that we set. Employees identifying as women represent 44% of our executive team, 36% of our management team, and 53% of our senior management team. Last year, we published our first accessibility plan to identify, prevent, and remove barriers for persons with disabilities. The plan was developed through best practice reviews, creation of an accessibility committee, and consultation with external partners and experts who support persons with disabilities. So now let's take a moment to reflect on sustainable growth. In 2023, we continued on our journey toward meeting Canada's goal for a net zero electricity sector. The Labrador Island Link was commissioned and released for service in April of last year. With all Muskrat Falls project assets now fully integrated into the province electricity system, in 2023, 92% of the electricity that served the people of this province was from net zero energy sources. If we include our energy export energy that we've generated, 99% of the electricity that we've generated in this province is from renewable energy sources. There have been early issues to address with regards to the Labrador Island Link, but it is performing well. The metric most often used to qualify an asset reliability is a forced outage rate in the utility industry, or how often an asset was unexpectedly offline. For the Labrador Island Link, that was about 4% in 2023. For the Muskrat Falls plant, it was about 2.5%, which is well better than the Canadian average for hydro plants. I do hope this reassures our customers. We are seeing value from these new assets, and as any asset in our fleet, we will continue to optimize and improve performance over time. In 2023, Hydro further supported electric vehicle use in Newfoundland and Labrador. We administered government rebate programs for individuals and businesses, and also by championing EV adoption across our operations. We administered 700 government rebates for electric and hybrid vehicles. This was an 88% increase over the previous year. So for folks who say that it's not happening, there's a stat to show that it is indeed happening. There's also a significant increase in the use of our 23 public fast charging stations, 13,000 charges. These systems are absolutely being used. And we have approval for 7 new ultra-fast chargers expected to be in service by the end of 2025. While reliably meeting high electricity demand in 2023, we worked to ensure we have plenty of electricity supply reserve available. During the times that we had more energy available than we needed to serve our own customers' needs, our energy marketing team maximized its value to the province by selling the excess to our neighboring regions. We delivered 4 terawatt-hours of excess energy to external markets, which is just under half of what the island uses in an average year. We realized $95 million in gross export sales and another $5 million in sales of renewable energy credits. Energy marketing's role will continue to be essential to our organization and our province as the global demand for clean energy grows. Many of our most isolated customers are served by diesel generation, and we continue to explore renewable energy initiatives in these areas. Our journey to a net zero grid, including diesel reduction, requires innovation and certainly collaboration. I'd like to highlight one example. Solar may seem like an unlikely energy source for many of us. This week would have been good except for today. Tomorrow it's getting better. But solar projects were indeed energized in 2 Labrador communities, St. Louis and Black Tickle, through an independent power producer model. Each project included a rooftop solar system installed on local community centers, and the benefits are many, helping to reduce reliance on diesel-generated electricity, all while still maintaining reliable connection to the grid that we provide in those communities. Now, allow me a moment to reflect on how we are serving our province. For more than 60 years, our team has been entrusted to deliver electricity to homes and businesses throughout the island and Labrador. It is no small task. It is a huge responsibility, and we take it very seriously. I'm very proud of the team that stands with me to deliver on that every single day. Part of serving our province is looking to the inside, how Hydro is working for you. The spirit in which Hydro works before you today is not the same from years gone by. I talked about a people-first culture, and that includes our customers. Serving our province is also about our fiscal responsibility, and in a few moments, excuse me, Lisa Hutchins, VP Finance and CFO, will present an overview of our financial performance for 2023. What I do hope that you take away from today and from Lisa's outlook is the value of our province's energy resources. We work for you, and we are working hard to ensure all of these assets continue to deliver both reliable electricity and value to Newfoundland and Labrador. Serving customers with safe and reliable electricity is what our customers expect, and it is our obligation and our privilege. That is why we continue to apply a risk-based approach to investment, with our capital program last year reaching $362 million for all of our assets. This ensured that the reliability of the service was prioritized, and our approach was proven. Customers on the island interconnected system experienced the lowest interruption duration arising from our operations since 2012. Just this past winter, cold snaps resulted in island demand reaching near record peaks. Rising to the challenge, our employees in our system successfully and reliably served this demand. To respectfully serve our province, Hydro is also committed to educate ourselves, learn from, and respect Indigenous history, as well as strengthen relationships with Indigenous governments, organizations, and communities. With this in mind, we continue to work with Indigenous people in the province. We work with Innu Nation through continued implementation of the Lower Churchill Innu Impacts and Benefits Agreement and other activities important to Innu communities. Inside the company, we provided opportunities for employees to learn about Indigenous culture through Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation education sessions. To serve you, we also need to hear from you. Hydro values the perspectives of everyone who has an interest in or is affected by decisions impacting the delivery of safe, reliable electricity. It's embedded in our values and is one of the 11 goals in our strategic plan that we're reflecting on today. In 2023, we prepared for a digital public engagement that was launched in January of 2024. The full report and results are now available on our website that contains all of the feedback that we received from the customers who participated. More than 2,000 responded, and half of those shared comments, we read every single one. Customers are concerned about the rising cost of living, including electricity rates, and we are keeping that top of mind as we make our next investment decisions. So those are just a few of my highlights from 2023, and I invite you to check out our online annual report to learn even more about our work. I will now pass it over to Lisa for an update.
Thank you, Jennifer. It's certainly been a busy and rewarding year for the team, and Hydro's 23 financial results are a reflection of that hard work and the dedication of our team. It's also a sign that our organization is evolving as we continue to bring new assets online and to harness every opportunity to optimize the value of our province's energy resources. I'd like to start by looking at a few of the more significant highlights for 2023. First, our financial results for 2023 were strong, driven by the positive financial impacts of the Labrador Island Link being fully commissioned in April of 2023. With the commissioning of the Labrador Island Link, we started to recognize revenue and expense from the use of the asset for the first time. And we were also able to increase our revenue from the delivery of power to Nova Scotia. The reversal of an impairment related to our oil and gas assets also served to increase our net income. Reversing an impairment ensures our assets are valued correctly when their worth improves, maintaining the accuracy of our financial statements. Impairments and reversals of impairments are non-cash and are not uncommon in the oil and gas industry. In this case, the value increased by $60 million, resulting in a positive impact in our 2023 net income. In 2021, Hydro's supply cost variance deferral account was created through an order of the Public Utilities Board to defer the net costs of the Muskrat Falls project that were not being recovered through customer rates. During 2023, a total of $335 million of rate mitigation funding was applied against that account. The rate mitigation funding consisted of two components. The first was a $190 million grant that was provided by the province of Newfoundland and Labrador to directly reduce the balance in the supply cost variance deferral account. The second component was $145 million of funds from the first drawing on the convertible debenture. These funds were obtained from Canada and were then used to further reduce the balance in the supply cost variance deferral account. The reduction in the account balance also had the impact of creating a rate mitigation expense that did reduce our net income. In December of 2023, Hydro paid a $300 million dividend to the province. This was the first time that Hydro has paid a dividend to the province since 2006. I can tell you that the team at Hydro is working hard to continue to serve our province in a cost-conscious manner while providing safe, reliable, environmentally responsible service. We continue to work closely with the province and the Public Utilities Board to ensure that we are well positioned and able to step up to meet the challenges of a clean electricity future and the impact that will have on the use of electricity in our economy. The slide that you see here now shows our profit, revenue, and operating costs for 2023 compared to that of 2022. In the first two bars there, you'll see that we show Hydro's profit for 2023 totaled $619 million. That's an increase of $39 million compared to 2022. The main drivers of this, as I mentioned on the last slide, are the positive net impacts of the commissioning of the Labrador Island Link and the reversal of impairment relating to our oil and gas assets. Those positive impacts were partially offset by the impacts of rate mitigation expense that resulted from the use of the funds from the federal convertible debt to reduce the balance in the supply cost variance deferral account. There were also some declines in export prices and oil and gas sales volumes that decreased net income in 2023 relative to that of 2022. In the middle chart, we can see that our revenue for 2023 was $1,524 million, an increase of $165 million over that of 2022. This increase is driven by a number of parts of our business. In 2023, we saw an increase in electricity sales to both our regulated customers, as well as electricity sold outside of our province to Nova Scotia, as well as to markets in the northeastern US. The additional electricity sold outside of our province was made possible by the commissioning of the Labrador Island Link. We also received $190 million of rate mitigation funding from the province of Newfoundland and Labrador, which paid off the balance that had accumulated in the supply cost variance deferral account up to the end of 2022. These positive impacts were, however, somewhat offset by a decrease in electricity export market prices in the northeastern US, lower water levels in Labrador, which resulted in no excess energy sales being sold to Hydro-Quebec in 2023, and a decrease in the volume of oil that we sold in 2023. In the last chart, I would like to note that we did recognize higher operating costs in 2023 compared to those of 2022. This was not at all unexpected and relates predominantly to the commissioning of the Labrador Island Link, which resulted in certain costs associated with the link starting to be expensed beginning in 2023 when we commissioned. While inflation has affected us and we experienced higher maintenance and labor costs, we do continue to be very conscious of every dollar that we spend. This next slide shows our oil and electricity export price and sales volumes for 2023 compared to 2022. On the left-hand side of the screen, we show our oil sales information. You will see in the green bar that during 2023, we sold nearly 2.5 million barrels of oil. That was a decrease of 568,000 barrels compared to that of 2022. You can also see in the green line that the price we realized for each barrel of oil sold increased slightly from $105 Canadian in 2022 to $109 Canadian per barrel in 2023. Moving over to the right-hand side of the screen, we can see on the green line that our realized electricity price for 2023 was $39 Canadian per megawatt hour. That is a decrease of $29 per megawatt hour from the $68 per megawatt hour that we realized in 2022. This decrease in market price was driven by the high volume of natural gas storage in the eastern United States, which is highly correlated to the electricity prices in the markets we sell into. You'll also note in the bars on the right-hand side that we sold an additional 314 gigawatt hours of energy into the export markets in 2023, resulting in sales of 2,419 gigawatt hours. This increase in sales was enabled by the commissioning of the Labrador Island Link in 2023. We are well into 2024 now and have recognized positive financial results thus far. Our profit in the first quarter of 2024 has increased by $135 million from $159 million in 2022 to $294 million in 2024. Sorry, that's from 2023 to 2024. The primary driver of this increase is the impact of commissioning of the Labrador Island Link in April of last year. In the first quarter of last year, we were not yet recognizing the revenues and expenses associated with the usage of this asset. This year, we are. We have also seen some electricity price, export price improvements, but we've also seen some declines in oil sales volume as well so far this year. In early May of this year, the Government of Newfoundland and Labrador announced its rate mitigation plan, which is effective on July 1st of 2024. This plan ensures that the domestic residential rate increases are capped at 2.25% annually, up to and including 2030, for cost recovery associated with hydro's operations, including the costs associated with the Lower Churchill project. Combined with the funding from the financial restructuring of the Lower Churchill project, which was enabled by the federal government, and revenue from rates from customers, the plan is for Hydro to fund the remaining rate mitigation through the cash that Hydro generates from our various lines of business to the extent possible. Hydro would otherwise dividend these funds to the province, but will instead apply them directly to rate mitigation. In the second quarter of 2024, Hydro did use $90 million of its funds to reduce the balance in the supply cost variance deferral account, as directed by the province in its direction of May of this year. Hydro also continues to support the province in phase 3 of the review of the province's current offshore oil and gas interests, which are held by our oil and gas division. No decisions with regards to these assets have been made at this time. As we look to the remainder of 2024, we are focused financially on the efficient operation of our assets, honoring our commitment to responsible management and development of energy resources, making thoughtful, cost-conscious decisions, and working to generate as much benefit as possible from our assets for the people of this province. Thank you very much, and I'll turn the microphone back to Jennifer, who will provide some business highlights on the first part of 2024.
Thank you, Lisa. And certainly to our talented finance team. There's a couple of you in the room here today. I thank God every day I did engineering and not become with accounting. I can tell you that. It's with your support and your oversight that we are able to report such a strong financial position. Meeting our climate action commitments is a significant undertaking, exciting one too. And reflecting on 2023, we have made great strides. This is the part of the AGM where I do stand in front of you and say, yes, but we are not done. In the utility world, there is no done. There is always work left to do. And for those of us that love the industry, we're actually energized by that. Today, we need more electricity. You hear that across the country and really frankly around the world. Tomorrow, next year, 10 years and beyond, we will need more electricity. There's no question. We must expand the electricity system to be ready for what's coming. And we are fortunate to have so many options in this province. Every utility across Canada is planning for what's needed. And like us, most are also under the scrutiny of the public lens. That's okay. We totally welcome that. I spoke of this at Energy NL this year at the beginning of June. Despite the clear need, there was a growing collective concern about getting the electricity system constructed. We must acknowledge this and choose to move ahead differently than historically. Modern processes are needed. We still need to review our decisions, but speed and rigor are not incompatible. With that in mind, Hydro has a plan to power this province, a plan to move us forward. 2 weeks ago, we filed our 2024 Resource Adequacy Plan with the Public Utilities Board, Newfoundland Labrador, the PUB. It is a continuation of our planning process that has been a heavy focus for 6 years for us now. And there's already so much information on the record. The plan provides an analysis of how much electricity customers are going to need for a 10-year planning period. And it discusses the best resource options to satisfy those growing needs. While the 2024 resource plan focuses on meeting forecasted growth and maintaining reliability for island customers, significant work is also ongoing to address the incredible energy opportunities throughout Labrador. Many of you have heard me say this before in media briefings or various public engagements, but I cannot be more clear. We are doing things differently and considering the lessons learned from the Muskrat Falls inquiry. This is well laid out in our recent resource adequacy filing. And in particular, you can go to pages 53 to 56 to talk about how we are indeed doing some of the things differently and incorporating the lessons from Muskrat Falls in our current decision making. We are absolutely listening to our customers, and we are committed to not overbuild, which can add unnecessary cost. We have looked at the minimum investment required, which reflects the slowest decarbonization trend, and therefore the least cost, the least impact on, least investment and the least impact on cost. It's an important first step in an ongoing iterative discussion with the Public Utilities Board and the interveners. Additional investment may be required if growth is indeed above the minimum investment required, and we are carefully analyzing what that might look like to ensure that we make the right investments at the right time. But we're not waiting to start preparation for the new assets. We're doing more of the work upfront now before proceeding with applications to build. We're doing more planning, more engineering, and that will give us more certainty on schedule and cost when the time comes to truly make the decision. And of these steps that are informed by inquiry, our research into what's best to do in this electrification economy and by reviewing perspectives from the pub and interveners, we're going to do everything very differently go forward. Of course, our work does not happen in isolation. We have partners at our table. And before I open the floor to questions, I would like to acknowledge some of those partners. They are important voices and collaborators. I'm thankful for Premier Dr. Fury and his administration for the support of Hydro over the past year. Our teams collaborate daily with many government departments. I am thankful for the support of Minister Parsons and his talented team, who we work very closely with, Minister Cody, Ministers Lovelace and Davis, and their teams, as well as other ministers, deputy ministers, and their incredibly hardworking support staff. I would like to acknowledge the pub. They have a lot on their plates, and they are working hard to respond to the significant needs of the electricity system in the years to come. I also want to acknowledge and thank the board members here today, as well as those that are joining virtually or who couldn't make it, many of whom are with us today for their support and guidance. Together, we will continue to carefully plan our energy future, balancing cost, reliability, and the environment. We're planning for the future and working really hard to power the province with safe, reliable electricity. Collectively, that is what every single person at Hydro contributes to each and every day, no matter where they sit or stand. To the Hydro team, you inspire me. I know some of you are watching online. You inspire me. How lucky and privileged am I to work with you all towards a shared goal for the people of the province. Thank you for showing up for your families, your communities, your friends, your colleagues, and certainly our customers. Some days have been difficult and challenging, but hopefully you recall moments of pride as you look back over the last year. I know I do. And you are all very much a part of that. So please know how much you are all appreciated. Your energy gives me energy, and I thank you for choosing Hydro. And finally, one more thank you to the people of the province. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to continue to serve you. Getting energy to your homes, businesses, and communities isn't just our job, as I said earlier, it's our obligation and it's our privilege. We will continue to do our absolute very best for you. So now we're into the question time. So I'm going to hand it over to Deanne.
Oh, okay. Just a couple of notes now before we open up the floor for questions. For those who are joining online, If you would like to pose a question, we ask that you please submit it using the question or comment field in the webcast portal, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. For media attending in person, if I haven't connected with you personally, we will offer an opportunity for you to speak with the CEO following the Q&A portion of today's event. Then for attendees in the room, we'll ask that you please raise your hand. We'll bring a microphone to you. We want to ensure everyone has the opportunity to ask their question. Therefore, after you've asked 2 questions, if there's others waiting, we will move on to the next person, and then we will come back around again, should time permit. And we will also pause to check for online questions periodically. We've allocated roughly 30 minutes for questions, and I want to just make note of that because we do have media in the room who we know are working on deadline. Not to say that you folks in the room, your questions aren't important, but for those people who don't get to attend in person or can't, the media certainly are a conduit to making sure we can get some information out to them. So, but what we want to say is if all the questions aren't completed, we'll pause. We'll allow Jennifer to meet with the media, do the scrum, because we know they have deadlines they're working on, and then we can reconvene. We can also take away, you know, we do have a number of our executive here, Lisa's here, others are here. We can certainly have them answer your questions one-on-one. We can take away any questions that you don't get answered today, and we can provide written answers. Whatever way we can work with you, and we have a team in the back, we'll certainly do whatever we can, just trying to balance the needs between those online, those in the room, and the media. And I think that's it. So I think I saw 2 folks over here. I don't know who was first. I'm going to start with Mr. Vardy. Beth, do you want to bring a mic to Mr. Vardy, and we'll start there.
And I would say we can have certainly Lisa come up if it's more appropriate for
Yes,
her to answer
absolutely.
any of those questions as well.
Yep.
Morning. Good to see the attendance here this morning. I want to begin by extending my appreciation for the opportunity to say a few words. And I have 2 questions. I'll keep it fairly short. I submitted a number of questions earlier, and so I'm going to stick to my text here. My name is David Barty. I'm a resident of St. John's. I'm an economist, retired public servant. I'm here today as a ratepayer and shareholder. I have served on the board of Hydro in the past. When I was a public servant, I served for 7 years on the board of Hydro, so I have a pretty good understanding of what goes on. I registered for the June 26th AGM. I filed 56 questions at that time. That was 6 weeks ago. I filed those. And that was based on my study of the financial statements of Hydro and also there are 15 subsidiary companies and the combined statements of the Lower Churchill project. All of that information was available online. And one of the things I want to say is that this year, I think you got the financial statements out earlier than previous years. So many of us had an opportunity to peruse them more in depth. And the operations of Nalcor are highly complex. As I mentioned, the 15 different separate companies. They demand clarity and transparency for ratepayers to understand what's going on. Extremely complex for the public to understand. And I think Hydro needs to do more to make it more transparent so that people can understand what are the factors driving costs, driving revenues, driving strategic planning. What are the big issues in the future? And so I think Hydro needs to strive more energetically for lucidity in its financial reporting and for more comprehensive engagements by all participants, including power users and suppliers. As I said, I filed my questions on June 17th. I added a few more questions on July the 22nd. And in my filing, I identified a shorter list of questions which I intended to raise today. I've now boiled those down to 2. So I have 2 questions that I want to put to the board today. They're important questions, and I've put aside a lot of other questions. First question I have is on profits, is on the whole question of profitability of the corporation, and the second one is on rate mitigation. Now, I'm looking forward to responses in writing as well to my other questions, but I'm hoping today to get answers to these 2 questions First one relating to profitability and the other relating to rate mitigation. So as I said, I've submitted those questions early, so there's been lots of time for those questions to be reviewed. Profits, start out with profits. Profits is normally taken as a barometer of performance in any corporation. Financial statements show Muskrat Falls generating huge profits. And so the question is, how can we read this barometer? And we're told that the costs of providing Muskrat Falls services, the power from Muskrat Falls, and the transmission services cost of $740 million. That's the figure that's been used in the legislature. It's been used in various documents, $740 million. So we're told that $740 million of costs remain unpaid.
Mr. Vardy, sorry, could you just speak into the mic? I'm not sure that everybody's picking it
Okay.
up. It just moved away from your mouth a little bit there, sorry.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're told that $740 million of costs remain unpaid, and that's going to take money away from other priorities, social priorities, health, education, roads, so on. Now, when I read the report of Nalcor, I see $386 million in profits in the consolidated financial statements, $386 million, and this represents 62% of the record profits of $619 million. When I go to the LCP combined financial statements, they show a different number. They show $492 million profitability, Muskrat Falls Corporation, an even higher profit than those shown in the consolidated financial statements. My question is, how can these numbers be reconciled? How can Muskrat Falls report profits when unit costs exceed unit revenues? 17% of the power from Muskrat Falls was used in 2023 on the island, 797.4 gigawatt hours. And those generate a certain amount of revenue. The 17% of Muskrat Falls output generated $64 million in revenue. 83% of the power was exported. The total revenues for Muskrat Falls come to slightly higher than 11% of the $740 million in cost. So there's a huge cost deficit, And that's the fundamental question I have today. The record shows Muskrat Falls running a massive deficit with negative profits. On one hand, Muskrat Falls is costing $740 million, but on the other, it is earning $386 million in profits. This amount, for $386 million, reported in the consolidated financial statements, is more than the profitability of Churchill Falls, more than the profitability of oil and gas. It's more than the profitability of the regulated operations of hydro. It's very significant numbers. So here we have the Muskrat Falls project, which was seen as being a drag on the province, a drag on hydro. Now it's being the center of profit. That doesn't compute. It just does not compute. How can Muskrat Falls be earning more profit than oil and gas, more profit than Churchill Falls, more profit than regulated operations when it's losing $740 million? So when I read those financial statements, I get very cynical. I come away thinking these financial statements are a cruel, sadistic joke at the expense of the people in the province. A cruel, sadistic joke at the expense of the people living on fixed incomes in the province, the people who are faced with escalating power rates. And they're a cold-hearted mockery of people who live in energy poverty and who can't afford the escalating cost of electric power. And every day we turn on the radio and we hear about the Newfoundland Power is looking for an increase, and they've just been given an increase, going to get more increases next year. And we know that the cost of Muskrat Falls is going to escalate in the future because we do have to repay the debt. The Nalcor board has a fiduciary duty to the people of the province to be transparent in its reporting. How can it maintain the trust of the government and the people when it reports such conflicting financial results. So that's what I have to say about profits. Rate mitigation. May the 16th, there was a joint government hydro announcement on rate mitigation that told us, quotes, beyond the amount recovered from customers and from federal funding sources between now and 2030, hydro will invest more than $2 billion to mitigate consumer rates. The portion that customers pay in 2024 will be less than 10% of hydro's annual costs of Muskrat Falls. So I look at this and I ask the question, what's happening to debt? Are we only paying the cash costs of Muskrat Falls? What about the debt retirement? It appears that rate mitigation plans place debt retirement on hold. So my question, the specific question, is the government has decided they're going to put in a certain amount of money, and for the next few years, Hydro will have to find $2 billion and earmark that money from its profits for rate mitigation to be used for debt repayment. To be used for rate mitigation. And my question is, how much of that will go into debt repayment? And will debt be higher or lower by 2030? And what will happen to power rates beyond 2030? Those are my questions, my two questions. And I thank you for the opportunity to ask these questions today. I limited my questions to two. There are still other questions that I look forward to getting answers to. Some of them are extremely important questions, but I thought those were the most urgent and the most immediate questions. And I would look forward to your answers to these two questions. And having submitted the questions in advance, I think Hydro's had lots of time to answer the questions. So I submit these questions and thank you for the opportunity to present them here today. Thank you very much.
Yeah, okay. Before I let Jennifer jump in, I will just point out for Mr. Vardy that those questions, and for everybody in the room, because as you said, Mr. Vardy, they are important questions. They are in the final stages of completion. I will note that they will be answered, but also the questions and answers will be posted on our website for everybody here to see, for media, for the public, anybody else who wishes to see them. We make sure that we are transparent with those things, so we will absolutely make sure that those are finalized. We did get some extra this week, and we wanted to make sure that some of them built on some of the previous questions. So we are absolutely in the process of doing that, and those will all be put online for not only you, but others to see as well. So I think the first question we'll get to was about profit, and I'll turn that over to Jennifer. I know you mentioned about there's $740 million in costs annually for Muskrat Falls. And then you were specifically talking about the $386 million in profit for the Muskrat Falls generation. So I guess I'll hand it over to you, Jennifer, and then if we need to bring Lisa up to the Lisa to come to answer as well. Lisa, I can pass you over our mic, but I guess we'll start off with Jennifer first on that, and then we'll get to your second question, rate mitigation.
I do feel like it was when you were in university, you had a question with parts A, B, C, D, and E. It felt a little bit like that, but thank you, Mr. Vardy, for that. I will certainly have Lisa supplement some of the comments that I will make, because she might be able to get into a little more specifics associated with it. So I was sort of making notes as you were outlining your question, so for a few things to mention. So on the profit piece, and if you take it up a really high level, the setup of the companies, as you mentioned, there's 15 companies. So from a governance perspective, it's a lot of work for us to manage through, but we're managed through it, I think, quite well. And these way the accounting and all that is done is on the basis of these contracts that were planned for, a dozen years ago. So this is the setup that we have. And so when we go through all of our financial statements, we have external auditors, we have our own internal audit, you have incredibly talented accounting folks that have to understand how the money moves around amongst all of these various contracts. The accounting standards that we have to use are not optional. We don't get to choose which standards that we apply. The accounting standards tell us how we calculate and account for how the money is allocated across the various companies, what determines expenses, what is, the various aspects of the accounting standards. So it's not a buffet of accounting standards. We're going to choose to represent things this way or represent things that way. I did really find it a bit difficult when you would say that it doesn't compute. It does compute. It does compute according to the accounting standards for which we are held, the International Financial Reporting Standards. And look at the accountants and say, yes, that's the right terminology. It's IFRS. So we don't get to choose what the outcomes are. The outcomes are the outcomes according to the financial standards that we apply. And then that is checked certainly by our auditors to say, yes, those accounting standards have been applied appropriately. So the math is the math. And it's really important to note that, that there's no declarations being made on the representation of that. You know, you said it doesn't compute. It does compute. It absolutely does compute. This is what the math and the accounting standards show. So I want to be really, really clear about that. I don't know if Lisa would want to add anything in particular about some of the specifics associated with it. But that is the way the accounting standards, you know, release the information. I'm not sure how that feels for you, but that is it. We can't choose how we're going to represent the financials of every company. This is the way that the math works. I don't know, Lisa, if you would add anything to that. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, we're definitely held to the International Financial Reporting Standards. The legislation under which we operate requires us to prepare our financial statements and have them audited and have them prepared in accordance with recognized accounting standards, which is IFRS, or International Financial Reporting Standards in our case, which absolutely is, as you say, Jennifer, is not a choice.
It's not a choice.
It's not
All
a choice.
utilities, you know, have to apply to a certain set of standards.
Yep.
A lot of utilities do use IFRS, and that's what we currently use.
It's an internationally recognized set of standards. There are published, they're online for anyone to go look up. And, you know, they are very detailed and complex, but they are there and we do have to follow them. The other thing too, I think maybe in terms of the, I think Mr. Vardy, your comparison of the 740 million to the 386 million, the 740 million is it represents the payments that have to be made in order to pay for the Muskrat Falls project. And those payments come from a number of sources. There's a portion that comes from customers. There's a portion of it that is coming from the restructuring of the financial restructuring of the Lower Churchill project, which was done with the federal and the provincial governments. And then there's a portion that's going to come from the rate mitigation plan that was announced by the province in May. The financial statements are done on, as Jennifer said, on a different basis. They're done on an accrual basis. And there are differences that do occur there. Those differences are portrayed, without getting into the details, in the financial statements. In both, there's an income statement that comes down to the 386, and then there's a cash flow statement which contains the elements of the 740 million. So they're a little bit of a different, they're different metrics. The 740 million does include the debt payments that are scheduled in accordance with the financing that has been put in place for the project. So that 740 million does include the debt payments. So the debt payments will continue as scheduled. You also mentioned the Lower Churchill combined financial statements. They are special purpose statements. They are prepared for predominantly, I believe, for the Muskrat Falls Oversight Committee. So they were prepared for a specific purpose, and so they are prepared using different assumptions, but they are not a fully consolidated set of statements, as are the Nalcor financial statements. So the Nalcor financial statements are the consolidated financial statements, and the Lower Churchill combined financial statements would reflect some transactions that occur as between our various entities that are not part of the Lower Churchill project. So there's they're a subsection. There's going to be puts and takes, but when you add all of the financial statements together of not just the Lower Churchill project, but of regulated hydro and Churchill Falls and oil and gas and energy marketing, you will come up to the there are transactions that are eliminated in the consolidation process, and that results in the 386 being attributed to the project. So I hope that's helpful. It's a bit technical, but
Yeah, I was just going to add just a couple of things which are not as technical, but from a transparency perspective, this is obviously one form. And, I certainly don't think we get obviously as many people looking as deeply as you have. But obviously with the Public Utilities Board, a lot of information gets filed with them, not necessarily in detail all of these things. But it is a forum for us to be held accountable and for us to be very transparent. Just to give you an example of how much information we are putting in front of the Public Utilities Board on a whole bunch of files. Just for 11 different files over the last 2 years and a bit, we filed 2,000 different filings. 2,000 filings we had to send to the Public Utilities Board, 15,000 pages. So in a whole host of different avenues, we feel that we are being transparent. We are being very accountable. We mentioned already about the digital engagement that we did. We were working to talk with the public and gain their feedback so that we can incorporate that into our business. When we have that information, we're uploading that to various social channels and our website in hopefully an improving, more public-friendly way to digest information. And we're very open to what else does transparency look like. Again, when I think about the Public Utilities Board and all the things that we are putting forward to the Public Utilities Board, including how the non-regulated assets are operating, not Churchill Falls, but all of the other non-regulated assets, all of this is going to the Public Utilities Board. So when I hear you say that we have to be more transparent, I would suggest that we're actually quite transparent, but we're open to ideas about how we can do it differently again. So very open to whatever you suggest that looks like. But I would contend that we are actually quite transparent these days. And I want to make sure that that's well understood, but we're very open to how else that might look like. What does that practically look like to you? Mhm. Yep. Yeah. Leave it to you.
Are you finished?
I
Sorry.
think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. If that's good.
Yeah,
She's
yeah.
our moderator.
So I just want to, I think, if I could just go back to something, and sorry if I'm going to bring this to a level that is very simple, and going back to something that you said, Mr. Barty, and I hear, deal with the media and what have you, and understand it, people hear Muskrat Falls making a profit, right? And here we are with rate mitigation. In order to, as you said, there's complex accounting. Muskrat Falls Generation is one company. Labrador Island Link is another company, all of these, and then there's the Lower Churchill project. But I think the important thing that everybody in the public needs to hear is that the costs every year, as you know, Mr. Brady, there was a PPA done, and it means that Hydro has to pay the Muskrat Falls or Lower Churchill project for the power. So although Muskrat Falls Corporation may look like it's, or the Lower Churchill project looks like it has a lot of money in profit, at the end of the day, normally what had happened is there's a cascading effect, right? They charge Hydro, charges customers. In this instance, what's happening is Hydro is not passing the cost on to customers. Hydro we're passing on 10%, as you said, but through cash that's come from all other parts of the company, that's going towards rate mitigation. There's restructuring of the financial structuring with the federal government. There's the borrowing, there's the government. So I think what the public really needs to understand is, even though it looks like Muskrat Falls Corporation is making money, that's not being in turn cascaded down and passed on to customers. As all of the cash that we have, or the monies that we have available, we have been ordered to, and that's what we're there for, to pass on to customers. So I think that we want to make sure that even if you don't understand accounting, if you don't understand, the corporations and the structural setup and all those things, is that the money is going towards reducing the electricity costs that go back to customers. So Sorry, I just wanted to make sure. Sometimes I try to summarize it. Lisa's probably going to kill me, but like from a public perspective, to try to make it as simple as possible, and I know what people hear. The other question you had was around rate mitigation. So, Beth, I don't know if you want to get a mic for Mr. Vardy again. I just want to make sure we get then to the second question you asked about rate mitigation and what that specifically might be.
By all means, what I would suggest is you answer my question on rate mitigation, and then we'll move on to other questions. And
Yep.
then I'll come back and respond to what Lisa and Jennifer have said.
Yeah, that was,
Okay.
that was included in
Okay.
response.
Yep, absolutely. So I think we had, Mr. Vardy, you can pass on the mic there to Mr. Sullivan. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi, Jennifer. My name is Des Sullivan, and as you know, perhaps to less than Mr. Vardy, who has been incredibly involved, but I have spent a long time since 2011 or 12 attempting to bring some transparency related to the Muskrat Falls project to the people of this province. And I have to say that while it is not specifically your responsibility, when I looked at the government's rate mitigation plan, and this is what was presented as the level of detail that the public should receive and be content with, I think understandably appalled. Now, I put this question to you in this fashion because the government has essentially said to Newfoundland Hydro, we're kicking the problem over to you. You take the profits of hydro and apply them to rate mitigation. But from my, as far as I'm concerned, the issue does not stop there. Hydro should not assume that just because you submit hundreds and hundreds of documents to the PUB, that you're suddenly being transparent. And when I look at something like this, and I want to see the real impact of Muskrat Falls, because let's face it, you know and I know that when you mitigate a dollar with a profit from hydro, when you mitigate a kilowatt hour with profits from hydro, you are essentially robbing a dollar that would otherwise or ought to be dividended to government to pay for social programs, whether it be health, social services, or otherwise. And I think as one citizen that the real cost of Muskrat Falls needs to be understood by the public. And I feel that when I see the kind of issuance of a rate mitigation plan that is so skimpy, that government perhaps doesn't want the public to fully understand what Muskrat Falls is costing them now and what it may cost them in the future. So that I want to say to you that while you, I have no doubt, have the best of intentions, you should not assume that following a debacle of the size of what has occurred, that good intentions alone substitute for an expression of real transparency and accountability. And that, so let me just get to my question. So in the rate mitigation plan, as I indicated, I saw the skimpiest of details. The public is expected to take on face value Hydro's assertion that the costs of Muskrat Falls facilities and commissioning amounts to $740 million. And we know that when the PUB examined for the Ball government this rate mitigation issue a few years back, the PUB did not audit Hydro's budget to see whether, in fact, it was accurate. There was no auditing done. We had to take that on whatever the figure was, seven and change. we had to take that on face value. And that's not good enough for me. After this debacle, I want to see the numbers. So we don't get to see the construction of that figure. And in the context of the requirement for rate mitigation, we don't get to see the cost of operations, the cost of financing, if it includes any capital repayment, if the cost of the two new $1 billion guaranteed loans are included. We don't get to see if that figure includes G&L's cost of financing. Now, we were told that a dividend, 11.4% dividend to G&L has been waived. But we've not seen any legislation in that regard, as you know. But perhaps more to the point, we don't know if even government's cost of capital for the equity in Muskrat Falls has been covered off. So that on the one hand, we can look at rate mitigation in the context of hydro, but we don't see, and we don't expect from you, but we ought to see whether in addition to your rate mitigation number, government is paying for another one. So you see, there is too much opacity, there's too much obscurity in this process for me, and I'll get to the point. So I'm asking you, as President and CEO of Hydro, if you would agree to release a full line statement of the annual operating and financing costs for the Muskrat Falls within the next 15 days, so that the public can assess for themselves, rather than take Hydro's word on face value, that all of the costs of Muskrat Falls have been fully represented in the rate mitigation plan for the project.
Yep, you go ahead, Jennifer. I do have a comment also for you, Mr. Sullivan, but I'll go ahead with Jennifer, and then I guess, Lisa, if you need to jump in, by all means, let me know.
Yeah, so, I had a few comments there to make a note of, and again, it's probably similar to, I think you were probably a little more specific on what you think that transparency and accountability looks like with your suggestion at the end, because that is what I'm trying to understand, is that I do think that we are very much trying to be very transparent and very accountable about our operations without having a whole other company doing the exact same thing that we're doing. I mean, there is a level of examination that is reasonable and a level of examination that's just duplication, right? So I do think that we have to be very thoughtful and careful about that. So we have indeed wanted to be very, very different. And I'll just use an example of, which I mentioned it, I don't have the details in front of me. I think it's at page 53 to 56. For the next set of decisions, so parking Muskrat Falls for a moment, but for the next set of decisions, which is quite publicly known, I'm sure you're aware, is there is load growth that is happening, and we have to plan for that. These things don't get done and installed, in a couple of years, and everybody is lining up to order their transformers, order their generators. And so across the world, there's significant demand for these kinds of assets. We have got to make some of these decisions. We are making these decisions in front of the Public Utilities Board, and they have been very good to us to say, how can we work together and do this urgently? They understand as well what's happening here urgently. So we are not planning on doing this behind closed doors. Everything we are putting in front of the regulator, there'll be public participation and opportunity there. So it is absolutely who we are today, and we are incorporating all of those learnings into our next set of decision making. So as we go through the sets of decisions, so let's project ahead 5 years, please God, and we're able to begin to respond to the growing demand in the province. Yourself and anybody else could absolutely be watching this and participating in this as it goes and ask those questions. So here we are now is looking at the things of the past, and I very much understand that this is still something that we should continue to understand and look at, go forward to make sure that we incorporate the best things, go forward to do it differently. So with regards to consideration of what are the costs of running of the assets, for example, One of the things that we plan on doing as part of our general rate application is to actually open up the books on what does it cost us to run the Muskrat Falls plant? What does it run us to run the Labrador Island Link? So that is intended that we will do that. And some of the vice presidents that are here are going to be on the witness stand to be able to be held accountable for those things. So we very much believe in the regulatory process. We have people who are employed both at the pub as well as the pub's interveners, who they hire experts who know how to question people like us. And they will indeed do that. So that is absolutely our intention, is to open up what does the cost of running these assets indeed look like. So that's really important. So that's not well known because we don't have our GRA yet. From a GRA perspective, we were always wanting to get the rate mitigation plan concluded and then go forward with the GRA. So we're preparing for the GRA. It may get a little complicated by the very high priority file that we have for new supply in the province, but we're working with the Public Utilities Board on that. So certainly you'll have a lot of access to all of those things in very complicated regulatory documents, but you'd probably enjoy perusing them. So that will absolutely be available for yourself and others who may be interested in perusing those documents. So I wanted to mention that. I can't speak for government with regards to its financials. Huge organization itself. I mean, we're big enough as is, but they're a huge organization. Their financials are different as well. So I can't really speak to that. And I don't think that we're going to be releasing many lines of a document within 15 days, because I do think there are definitely going to be opportunities for examination of the costs of these assets as we go forward into a general rate application.
Yeah. If I could just point out one thing for you, Mr. Sullivan, also that you referenced there. And just for information, I'm Deanne Fisher. I'm the Director of Public Affairs and Customer Service. And so many of the things you're talking about today are certainly things that we address. I want to point out two things, and my colleagues are in the back. We look at the International Association of Public Participation as our guidelines around accountability, transparency, and all of those things. So we work very hard to ensure that we're releasing information to the public. Not only are we accountable to the transparency and accountability legislation and ATIP or whatever, we take steps to make sure we make information accessible. One of the things I wanted to point out for you when you talk about the level of detail that was in the rate mitigation technical briefing, which again, we worked in collaboration with government on, I will let you know that we do research regularly. You're welcome to see any of our research. We reach out to our customers. Jennifer talked about a digital engagement recently. We ask them, we get questions on our website, everything. What is it that's important to you? And obviously, as you've stated today, and Mr. Vardy has as well, is that the rising cost of electricity prices are critical. But the other thing they tell us is that, and this has been said for many years, is it is complex. It can be challenging to understand. And most people want to know at the end of the day, how does it affect me? How does it affect me and my household? So I respect that you want a lot of detail. Most of what our research is telling us is that I'm not an accountant. I'm an average person going to work every day. I need to know what's going to happen to my bill. I need to know what's going to happen to the tax revenue and those things. What they have said to us is, give it to me plain, high level. Tell me how it's going to impact me. And that's where some of the messaging around rate mitigation went to, was that, and as you said, you can lift up the hood and start looking at numbers for days, right? And there's some people who want to do that. So I just want to point out there that what we're trying to make accessible for the public also is meeting them where they're at. Not everybody is going to have the time, the knowledge, the expertise to really dive down. I recognize that that may require, as you said, a level of trust, but also we have to adhere to accounting principles. We adhere to transparency legislation, and everything that we put out there has to be in evidence. So I just wanted to point that out in terms of why sometimes we speak at a higher level. And actually, Lisa, I don't know if there's anything you wanted to add, Lisa. Yeah, okay.
I would just say in response to that, with all due respect, that there was no level of detail in that rate mitigation document. Right?
Well, I guess it would be.
You can't say to me that we can't provide a level of detail that would be useful for a public accountant. In this case, it wasn't even useful for someone who would ordinarily expect to see a complete list of costs and expenses with regard to this project, because none were attempted, right? This is not someone nitpicking a line item of 50 items. There were virtually no items. So let's not obscure the issue by saying that this is all very complicated and we can't, people only want to see the bottom line. Some of us don't want to see 500 pages of data.
Yes.
Some of us are content with a few pages of data.
Yeah.
So would it be too hard for Hydro to issue a few pages of data incorporating the broad line items of costs and expenses?
So all I'm going to take away from there is, sorry, Jennifer, is that I'm not suggesting, all I'm saying, that wasn't our technical briefing. We worked in collaboration with government.
And I appreciate
So, and I just wanted to point out that sometimes what we're trying to do with the public is make sure that we can, as the average Joe turns on the news every day, and we're trying to make it accessible for them. That is not to suggest that we're saying that we didn't provide enough detail or what have you. We're happy to take away now what you're requesting and consider how we can answer that within the documents we have or the information. We're more than happy to do that. All I just wanted to make sure, as you understand, is that we're not, from Hydro's perspective, and what we're talking about at times is not to do with, trying to get down to a level of detail. We're trying to make sure it's understandable by the public. But I do need to pause there because we do have questions online. So we want to make sure we get to others, and we do have another question here.
That was one question. I just have one quick other
Yep.
one. Again, I would, Ms. Williams, I would address this to you because you have made much over the last couple of years about the increasing demand for electricity in the province. And it wasn't all that long ago that Hydro Nelcor walked back the forecasts on which it based the Muskrat Falls project. One of the big concerns that I have as a citizen of this province is that when I look at the number presented by presumably by your marketing team, where you netted out around 3.9 cents a kilowatt hour on surplus power export sales. And I'm saying, hey, that isn't very much on a project that I know costs north of 20 cents for every kilowatt hour, which means that any kilowatt hour that is sold less than that, the public, whether through Hydro or through government, has to provide compensation out of their own pockets, directly or indirectly. So when you talk about the expansion of Beta Spear number 8, or talk about other projects, capital projects, which we all know are most likely to be north of 13 cents or so a kilowatt hour. I'm saying, and in the same breath, we are hearing about hydrogen development and wind power and so on, and the expectation of these companies to find agreements with Hydro with regard to power, then naturally I'm saying to myself, at what cost are we entering into those contracts? Are they going to be at the industrial rate right now? Are they going to be less than that? Are we making decisions that essentially substitute the responsibility of large corporations for the risk to be taken on by ratepayers? And so I get very nervous when I hear you talk about new developments and you're not talking about what someone is prepared to pay for this power. And so I have to ask you, would you stop doing that? Would you please incorporate revenue estimates per kilowatt hour in your analysis, in your public statements, so that and would you indicate as well what you are prepared to do as a corporation for those potential hydro developers? Because I don't want to absorb their risk.
Sure.
Okay.
We've done that.
Okay.
And I want to make sure that our costs and risks are not extended.
Sure.
Thank you.
Great question. Love that
Great.
question.
Yeah. All right. I'll turn it over to you, Jennifer. And I just want to point out beforehand, then we also have a question online and we have another from the audience. So I'll just go in that order next. So over to you, Jennifer.
So the reliability of resource adequacy filing that I've referenced a couple of times, there's a couple of specific parts of that. And we submitted in March I don't know how many pages, Rob, many pages of dozens of pages summarizing the load forecast that we have done. And that would be predicting what the load is expected to do over various scenarios in the next 10 years. And we also had, so that's filed publicly. So for public scrutiny, we are expecting the Public Utilities Board. So the Public Utilities Board has hired a new consultant who are experienced in testing utilities load forecasts. They are examining that load forecast now. They're going to issue their report on our load forecast. So we are, again, when I talk about transparency and account, this is exactly what we're doing now. This is how we're doing this next file. So they're going to test our load forecast, say if it's right, if it's not right, what do they think? If they want to think you should do something different, you should incorporate different perspectives. So that is absolutely underway right now. And that has always been the plan. From a planning perspective, the ability to supply electricity is not just energy, and I'm probably going to get a bit too detailed a little bit. There's energy and capacity. So, and where you know that, right? But not all the public does. So how you have to set your system up is on the basis of that and our changing system. So our load forecast shows what that load is, where the load is going to be. I will specifically reference the load forecast that we did submit for examination by the Public Utilities Board, and on the basis of which we're saying we need more supply in place in 10 years. So I'm not saying I need it today, right? In 10 years' time, it is going to do this. So it's not just now and in 10 years it's this, it is still ramping up. But we also had a third party, energy advisor, question us and query us, and their attestation is included in that filings that we just did with the Public Utilities Board as well. So we're not just inside our own organization doing all of this and then going and saying, can somebody please sanction this project? Right, it is being done, and I said that earlier, it is being very, very differently, and I cannot be clear enough about that. And to suggest that it's not being done that way, or to let the public think that it's not being done that way, that's not fair and it's not appropriate. It is causing fear amongst people. So we are absolutely doing everything differently. The Public Utilities Board have incredible people on staff. They have incredible interveners. They hire their own experts. This next decision is going to be done that way. From a rates perspective, we can't decide what the rates per kilowatt hour, what the rates are going to be until we get further along in the process. So we are now just looking at the load forecast. We've got a filing that says if we choose and what scenario we choose to build for with that load forecast, here are the projects that we think are the best suited to do. Through the course of this year, we are going ahead with getting, I think it's up to 40%, Rob, engineering completed for 2 of those projects. So we're not going to have only a tiny bit of information. We're going to have a lot more certainty on cost, a lot more certainty on schedule. That will be submitted to the Public Utilities Board for its examination and scrutiny. We're thinking about getting contractors involved like now, early in the process to say, okay, what do we not know? How can we do this differently so that we can do that cost and certainty? Then you take all of that together. Then you say, okay, now we have an idea of what the cost is. And then you go to the Public Utilities and say, this is the cost. How do we all feel about that? What is the decision? So I'm going to push back pretty hard that that is how we are functioning today. And to suggest that anything different, it is causing fear unnecessarily, and I don't think it's helpful. I have to be pretty firm and direct on that. Was there anything else that you asked?
I think he was asking about the new wind hydrogen
yeah,
developers
that's
and the
additional
rates on that.
So included in that forecast as well is we are very conservative, low C conservative, in our estimates for what we're going to have to supply on a firm basis to these projects. frankly, I would love for something to happen in this province, something new and interesting and exciting. It's wonderful for the province. So we are trying to enable those. We meet with all these proponents all the time to let them inform their decisions. But in this current forecast, we've only got 10 megawatts firm power allocated to these sources. So you're concerned that hydro is financially going to have other customers harmed by supplying power. That is absolutely not the case. So again, it is, all of the stuff is already filed. It is already publicly available. It is really important that we don't lead the public to believe that there's anything any different. That is absolutely the case. 10 megawatts out of a forecast that we're 1,800 megawatts peak now, right? So, I mean, it is not a significant addition that we're planning for.
Yep. Thank you, Jennifer. And just going back to one of the things for you, Mr. Sullivan, is that every month at the Public Utilities Board, we do file the supply cost variance deferral account, and it shows what the costs are. Is it on an annual basis or what's accumulated? Yeah, monthly. And so that will give you some assurance on costs and what that account, the deferral account is billing up to. But before I move on, one of my team will certainly connect with you and we'll find out what else it is you're looking for. We're committed to releasing and providing you with whatever level of detail you need. So appreciate that. I do have to get to, we've blown well past our 30 minutes, but I do need to get to an online question because that individual has been waiting, yes, and then I will get over to, yep, and so I think we're trying to be, so I think what we'll do here now is I'm being cognizant that we do have several media in the room that are waiting to speak to Jennifer. So what I would say is that, and they do have deadlines, so we'll ask this question online and then we can get to you. And then I think we'll need to break so the media can speak with Jennifer, and we can certainly come back, reconvene if you wish to ask some other questions. But we just didn't want them sitting around for another hour when they have stories to file this evening. And not only that, that's a way in which the public gets information as well for those who haven't been able to attend today. Okay, so I'm just going to ask this question from online. Is there consideration being given to additional export capacity through the maritime link, namely matching import capacity on the LIL? I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know if there's.
We can follow up with maybe a little more.
Yeah, perhaps we could ask that individual to probably provide us a little bit more of a follow-up on that. I'm not sure we're really understanding the question. Okay, sorry, Walter thinks he can manage this, so bear with us.
Walter Parsons, I think the question is about, could we uprate the maritime link to match the size of the LIL? So the LIL is a 900 megawatt link from the Muskrat Falls plant, bringing power from Muskrat and Churchill down to the island, and the maritime link is only 500 megawatts to Nova Scotia. So I think the question is, could we uprate maritime link or add to it so that it matches the LIL? These links are designed, both the transmission hardware as well as the software are designed for a particular load level. So it's extremely costly to sort of go ahead and change that. There's no ability to easily uprate those. So you'd be really looking at adding a second system in parallel. And that's not something we're considering right now, primarily because Muskrat and the power from Labrador is not primarily, the goal of it is not to generate higher exports. I mean, we export when we don't need it for in province, but the 900 megawatts was sized for the needs that were estimated for the island of Newfoundland, in particular the Avalon, and the 500 megawatts was scaled to meet the needs of the Nova Scotia system. So, we use the spare capacity when, most times of the year when, as folks said earlier today, when we're not experiencing peak demand here in Newfoundland and Labrador. But no, we're not looking to invest in new infrastructure with an export focus. Any new infrastructure that we would propose would be to meet
directors deal with this, all highway directors know that. But there's not going to be a lot that will change from an organizational perspective once that's enacted. We have functioned very much as a single organization since the government told us to do that. That is happening. The actual legislation should happen in the very near future.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say this. There's contracts 50 years without them. It doesn't exist. So that doesn't disappear. And that's not abnormal. I mean, companies take over other companies all the time. And, you know, we don't, the obligations continue. I just don't know that it's really significant for us as we operate, how this moment will change. Like we're really trying to be very accountable and be very responsible to the public in ways that, you know, folks would expect us to in a new world. And we are working with government to get those tidied up pieces done.
And if you're still an alcohol, why not call yourself an alcohol? Because you still are an alcohol.
There was a government directive not to, first of all.
Check.
Oh. Yeah, no, it was announced that all of the operations will be coming under hydro, that functionally, operationally, publicly, we would be hydro with the legislation to follow. That was actually introduced, I think, in the last sitting of the House, and we expected it to come back, but it didn't get into the last sitting. We expect it to come forward. There is a significant amount of work happening behind the scenes, looking over our finance folks and legal folks to actually determine, like I said, how money flows, all those things. That is the expectation. That's how we're operating. The EPCA and the ECA, those are going to change, and there's going to be one piece of legislation. It just hasn't gone through the House yet. But government did, I think, when Jennifer was named CEO, not long after, I think there was, you know, came together as an announcement to say that Nalcor would be no longer. It will come under hydro. The legal entity may exist on paper for a bit, as Jennifer said, but that legislation to change those two pieces, the EPCA, the ECA, and for it all to come under one, is underway. We're going to scrum. If anybody else wants to stick around and you have questions, or Mr. Coffey or Mr. Sullivan, anything you have, we're happy to answer that and appreciate your time. But if you're welcome to stick around, we're going to have Jennifer scrum with the media now.